two things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity. And I'm not so sure about the universe. I just found this funny because I found this online and the person who made it spelled stupidity wrong. Albert Einstein is our quasi-philosopher of the day. Now, he's a scientist, and we're not going to get into the theory of relativity and his scientific experiments. But rather, we're going to use him as a vehicle to discuss something that's important to understand for Eastern philosophy. Science versus mysticism. Mysticism is an out there concept that some of you are going to jive with and some of you are going to refute. And I'm going to use the world's most famous scientist to show that mysticism maybe should have a little more focus than we give it. So, the big questions. Where did life and atoms and elements and the Big Bang and all of the rest come from? Where did it come from? How did we get here? What is this all about? The big, deep questions that you can sit on the roof of your car at night and stare up at the stars and never think of an answer to. What are the answers? Well, religion has different views, and there's different religions. Science might have different views, and these things try to, quote-unquote, explain this question, this mystery. Can we really ever know the answer at all? One of man's most profound questions that people will spend their entire lives trying to find out. I just like this image, the idea of the gifted person pushing into the pull door. Sometimes we look in the wrong places to find answers. So, the question of who or what is responsible for life and the universe. This deep, deep question. What are some answers that have been come up with? Well, different religions have different answers. And before you freak out, we're not talking about religion today at all. If you were raised as an ancient Greek, you would believe the logos of the universe, the logic. If you were a Taoist, which we will get to in a little later in the year, we were talking about the Tao. If you're a Chewbacca, if you're a Wookiee, then it's the Force. Ultimately, each of these theories, and Christianity being the religious theory that's most utilized in America, these theories are all a difference of opinion for what the name we give the ability for an acorn to turn into a tree. What gave that ability? Not just an acorn to turn into a tree, but life. Where did that come from? These are all just differences of opinion of the name. Nobody can know for certain. We are taught by schools, by books. Some believe God is man-like. Others believe that he is nature and all we see. Others say there's no God at all and there's only science. We're not going to get stuck in those deep religious discussions. This discussion is not about religion or God or anything like that. It's more about trying to bring back some wonder, some mystery to the universe. We look at how science tries to analyze and use man's best guess to find out what is actually the mechanism by which the world works, and we call it science. But maybe there's some other way of looking at it. Maybe not everything has an answer. So what do scientists do? Through observing things and doing experiments, they try to find out how the world works. And the knowledge that science gives us is one of the most valuable things in the world. I am not completely bashing science at all in today's presentation. This is a quote from Carl Sagan, a modern-day famous television scientist. Science is not perfect. It's often misused. It's only a tool, but it's the best tool we have. It's self-correcting, ever-changing, applicable to everything. With this tool, we can vanquish the impossible. Vanquish meaning overcome, defeat. And that picture is the space shuttle going through the clouds. I like the part about self-correcting, ever-changing. Self-correcting, ever-changing means if the facts change, then the science has to change. But the question is, why would the facts change? And we'll get to that in a moment. Now, if a scientist sees a pattern in the way the universe behaves, for instance, gravity, and we come up with a rule or a law to describe it, doesn't the fact that there is a pattern prove that things aren't random? I mean, in other words, if there are laws to be discovered, if there's a pattern out there and scientists can discover the pattern, where do these patterns come from? Like the way that the snowflakes all tend to become geometrically amazingly frozen. that it's not random. There's something to it if you go back to Pythagoras. Doesn't what we call the law of nature, doesn't that prove that there has to be some cosmic order? And I'm not saying God. Doesn't there have to be some cosmic order behind all of this? A cosmic order that we can't possibly understand and rather can only have wonder and mystery towards? There's something more to life than what we see on the surface. This is Adyashanti, a modern-day Advaita Vedanta Zen practitioner. The question is, do you agree with this? Some people say, yeah, I think there's more than we know. Other people say, you know what, if I see it, believe it. I don't believe a lot. So one of the kids said, I see it when I'll believe it when I see it. And I said, well, have you been to California? And they said, no. And I said, well, it doesn't exist. There are only two ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle. The other is though everything is a miracle. And that's the concept. I mean, when we eventually individually die, if we die of natural causes or by disease, there will be one day when one final thing is the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, and our body ceases to work and keep us alive. It's a miracle that we are alive. It's a miracle about so many things. But most people have a been there, done that apathetic mindset. They've lost the mystery of the world. They deal with facts because that's what school teaches there are. Lots of. Einstein was not only a scientist, but he was also a mystic. Now, what's a mystic? Number one, someone who believes in unseen realities. Okay, we just talked about that. And number two, one who believes that they can have access to hidden mysteries that transcend ordinary human knowledge. Transcend goes beyond. In other words, is it possible for us to understand things that are unseen in the universe? Is it possible that there are things that are at play in the universe? And I'm not talking UFOs, but I'm saying the underlying way that the world works and the universe works. Here's two different quotes on mysticism. The first from Marshall McLuhan. Mysticism is just tomorrow's science dream today. Looking at mysticism in a positive way. And then Carl Sagan again, science is a way to call the bluff of those who only pretend to knowledge. It's a bulwark against mysticism and superstition, against misapplied religion to where it has no business being. Two different ways of looking at the concept that there might be more going on than we can truly see. Is the universe and our world random in its behavior, or is there some intelligent design behind how things operate? Going back to earlier in the year, the golden ratio. I don't know. I mean, I think there's some order, not saying anything about God, but that there seems to be some organization or logos, perhaps.
1,000 feet, this is the highest flamingo colony in the world. At night, it gets so cold that even this salty water freezes over. And now the flamingos are trapped in the ice. Eventually, the sun thins the ice. But it's still a struggle for the flamingos to break free. Walking on thin ice is always risky. And it's hard to retain one's dignity, especially when you're wearing stilts. At these altitudes, the sun's power can quickly turn from salvation to threat. The atmosphere is so thin, there is very little protection from ultraviolet radiation. By mid-morning, it's risky to linger out in the open. But this doesn't seem to bother the flamingos. In fact, they are on parade. season, the flamingos perform these peculiar courtship dances even through the hottest time of the day. They're so eager, they don't even pause to feed. The rules are something of a mystery, but after a month of dancing, all the birds will have paired off and will be getting ready to mate.
So, the flamingo dance. Is the dance something that was learned by the flamingos, passed along, or is it an innate behavior, something that was already in the flamingos? In other words, did one weird spastic neck flamingo start shaking its way across the ocean, across the lake, and then the others copied him because he was getting all the flamingo action? Is that the way it happened? Or is there some sort of inner programming that causes them to do that little neck shake thing? Were they born with these mating moves? Everything is determined, said Einstein, by forces over which we have no control. It's determined for the insect as well as the star and the flamingo, human beings, vegetables, or cosmic dust. I love this part. We all dance to a mysterious tune played in the distance by an invisible piper. The mysterious tune is the way we tend to act and the way we operate, played in the distance by an invisible piper. The invisible piper being the order of the universe, perhaps, that causes flamingos to dance like that? Who knows? As science unravels more and more of the puzzles, the mystery of nature does not diminish but deepens. Meaning, when we truly get more answers, that actually leads to more questions. As I'm not going to get into quantum physics, but when you get to the real edge of cutting-edge science, it gets to mysticism. They connect. So, the gravity example, hopefully Isaac Newton sitting under a tree, gets hit in the head by the apple, realizes the idea of gravity. Really what he did, he established a rule called gravity to predict the way that things are going to work based on how he saw them work in the past. He was really just an intelligent bystander sitting there chilling, taking apples off the dome. He used logic to go, wow, look at how fast that apple falls. Ooh, look, that apple is bigger and it hit me harder in the head and my concussion is larger. He ultimately really just used logic to explain what was happening in terms of what had already occurred. But the question is, why does gravity act the way it does? And could the law of gravity one day change? And if the law of gravity one day changed and the apples floated above his white-wigged head, what would cause that law to change? And if that law changed, would the law of gravity have to be changed by the scientists? I prefer an attitude of humility corresponding to the weakness of our intellectual understanding of nature and our own being. This is perhaps the smartest individual in modern world history saying, I prefer an attitude of being humble, that's humility, corresponding to the weakness of our brains not being smart enough to understand nature and our being. He is being humble about it. But how many people who we hang out with have all the answers? Who are we? Why are we here? Science can have laws, but does it really explain anything? Here's an example from the medical field. Old Dorothy. I found this in a British newspaper. Whiskey and 15 cigarettes a day is the secret of my good health, said Dorothy as she has celebrated her 100th birthday. The hardy pensioner Dorothy Howe had reached her 100th birthday despite smoking nearly 500,000 of cigarettes during her life. The retired secretary took her first drag age 16 and has puffed her way through 15 Super King Black Ciggies every day since then. She has smoked almost 460,000 cigarettes over the last 84 years. How is this lady alive? And look at the look. She looks like a lot of fun, but she's toasting us. She's working her drink as well. Now, the question is, how is she alive? That doesn't make sense. Does it? How does science have a way to explain how Dorothy's alive? Well, they'll come up with something like it's the statistically acceptable deviation from the mean. The mean means average. And something that's way, way, way not average, we give this nickname to, statistically acceptable deviation from the mean. Does it really explain the fact of how Dorothy's still alive? Jim Fixx. Jim Fixx is before the time of most of my viewers, but Jim Fixx made running popular. I know running's been around a long, long, long time, going back to the marathon, ancient Greece, but Jim Fixx brought it back as a sport that people would put their little jogging shorts on and they would jog around, and then Jim Fixx died of a heart attack while jogging. Dorothy's doing, keg stands and smoking cigarettes all day, and Jim Fixx, the running guy, dies of a heart attack. Does everything have an answer? Or do we have to accept the mystery of how life tends to unfold? The soothing morning routine. One of my favorite recent students, he said that every morning he likes to have an English muffin with, I believe it was a banana. And by having the same meal every day and having routine, which a lot of people love routine, by having order and certainty and knowing what happens next, we become secure. We become at peace because everything makes sense. There's order to the universe. I had my English muffin and a banana. But here's the question. Are we really just lying to ourselves about everything being orderly on our day-to-day basis? The wisdom of insecurity, this is Alan Watts. We'll talk about him later in the year. He's an Eastern philosopher. The wisdom of insecurity is being wise enough to know that oftentimes you are going to be insecure. You're not going to know what's going to happen next. Not everything has an answer. The bad guy doesn't always get what he deserves at the end, and the good guy sometimes finishes last. Life doesn't work out the way we think it will. And ultimately, any opinion we have is kind of pointless. Anxiety comes because we want to know what happens next. The wisdom of insecurity is letting it go to the wonder of the universe, of the mystery, of watching how life unfolds and working with it rather than hoping it cooperates with us. That's the wisdom of insecurity. That's the correct answer. Well done. American schools, Western schools, we need the right answers. Students who are smart enough to know they want to do the least work for the best grade because the grade is a key to their future money, hopeful futures. The idea is if you get the answer, you get the grade, so the kids have stopped doing any learning. They just have ability to get the answer. The problem is, as a result of this brainwashed ability for kids to game the academic system and just focus on the grade, we've focused so much on the right answer that we've tended to miss the big picture in some ways. School failed me and I failed the school. It bored me. The teachers behaved like sergeants. I wanted to learn what I wanted to know, but they wanted me to learn for the exam. What I hated most was the competitive system there at school. Because of this, I wasn't worth anything, and several times they suggested I leave. I felt that my thirst for knowledge was being strangled by my teachers. Grades were their only measurement. How can a teacher understand youth with such a system? And obviously, in the past, when I've asked students how many people can connect with this, a lot of kids will raise their hand that the learning is gone, the thirst for knowledge has been strangled by the need for grades. And I mean, maybe the top students wouldn't feel this way because they focus on the grades. But this is the view of Albert Einstein. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. In our society, whoever remembers the most stuff wins on Jeopardy and is the smartest. But that's not true at all. Everybody is a genius. It depends what you're measuring things by. And the idea of creativity isn't something that's easily measurable. It doesn't have an objective answer to it. Creativity solves the problems of the universe, and it comes from a place that's more creative, quite obviously, and it comes from a place of mystery and ideas coming into fruition that had never existed prior. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. Well, let's pause there. Intuitive mind is the intuition, that gut feeling. They talk about women's intuition. Eastern philosophers say if we stopped thinking and stopped talking for a moment, we could actually hear this inner voice that had truth. Einstein is calling it a sacred gift, and the rational mind, that's our ability to think, is a faithful servant. It can do what we need it to do. And then the second part, we have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And we do. We honor the ability to think things through. Thinking is so great, and I don't disagree with that. Western philosophy puts a lot of focus on thinking about thinking. Eastern philosophy tries to get you back to that Zen place where the intuitive mind can be heard. And as Einstein calls it, the forgotten gift. Now, the idea that if we were quiet of mind and voice, that concepts would begin coming to us sounds almost supernatural. But a lot of times musicians will leave a guitar or a notebook by the bed so that when they wake up in the middle of the night, Keith Richards knows the song Satisfaction and plays the chords. He never knew that song before, but it came to him while he was asleep. An orange. Now, the sweet orange. Is it true if you take an orange seed and you put it on the dry ground, is it going to grow? No. You need to put that orange seed in fertile ground. Fertile ground that is covered or that is made up of decay and excrement. Crap. Shite. Is this true that the orange seed needs fertilizer from excrement to grow? True. Now, is it true that the orange, because the seed grows from the fertilizer, are the orange and the fertilizer the same? The decay, the excrements, are they the same as the orange? Well, clearly not. But here's the question. After I eat the orange the next morning, it's going to return to the toilet as excrement. And then that excrement could be used as fertilizer to grow more oranges. Is that true? Now, this is way, way out there, and this either weirds kids out or blows their mind. But there's some sort of weirdness to the universe that science can't explain, really. Now, you can say, well, the nutrients in the fertilizer, that weren't absorbed by the body, caused the orange. But ultimately, the orange is using nutrients from the fecal matter to become orange. There's something beyond the human intellect to truly explain how this happens. Not what happens, but how this happens. How does an acorn become an entire forest?
The high humidity of the forest floor isn't just good for velvet worms. It's perfect for fungi too. And Borneo's ancient jungles are rich in species. By decomposing the dead, the slime molds and fungi recycle scarce nutrients.
The wonder of creation. Eastern philosophy, which we will be covering next, that's Asian philosophy, they put their attention or focus up the chain. They are looking at the force. They look at the wonder. They look at the mystery. They look at things they can never know the answer to. They accept things they can't know the answer to. The Western world and the scientific viewpoint finds answers, and that's great. But maybe we have missed out that there's a cosmic mystery to the way the universe exists. That maybe there's more to life than what we see. If you remember Pythagoras with the solfeggio frequencies, which we're actually listening to 528 right now. So this cosmic force that allows an acorn to grow into a tree. Who believes in karma? Usually a lot of kids will raise their hands. Karma, the idea that you're going to get what you've got coming to you. Good, do something good's going to happen. It's completely Americanized, westernized version of karma. We'll talk about what karma really is. When we say everything happens for a reason, whose reason? Is there... we need the world to work out a certain way so something bad happens, and we say everything happens for a reason. When we win the lottery, we don't usually say that. We're just we're jumping around. Is it possible that we will never know many things for certain? And are we okay with having the wisdom of insecurity to not know? I am not an atheist. I do not know if I can define myself as a pantheist. The problem involved is too vast for our limited minds. The human mind, no matter how highly trained, cannot grasp the universe. We are like a little child entering a huge library whose walls are covered to the ceiling with books in many different languages. The child knows that someone must have written those books. It does not know who or how. The child notes a definite plan in the arrangement of the books, a mysterious order, but it doesn't understand. We see a universe marvelously arranged, obeying certain laws, but we understand the laws only dimly, only a little bit. Our limited minds cannot grasp the mysterious force that sways the constellations. Einstein, the greatest scientist potentially in modern history, is saying that our limited minds can't possibly understand the way nature works and the mystery of the universe, and maybe we should be more in awe with open minds than closed minds thinking we know the answer. Write some journals, let me know what you think.